This tutorial is part 2 of a 3-part series. While the videos can be used as a reference, they really were designed as a tutorial and meant to be watched in order. So with that said, let's recap what we learned in the previous 8 hours of videos in part 1. The first thing we did was we learned how to plan our database. You don't just sit down at the computer and start programming. You have to create an ERD, a requirements document. You have to do all kinds of things planning what you're going to do before you do it, because you don't want to make a mistake. It's the same thing as being an architect. You don't go out and hire somebody to build your house. You hire an architect, and then you hire somebody to build the house based on the architect's plans. Then we learned about housekeeping fields. We go into Manage Database. We'll see what those are. Those are your account create, account modify, stamp create, and stamp modify. These allow you to track what's happening with your records at a very basic level, but can be very important for tracking down problems. Then we created primary keys, which were serial numbers. And if we look at the auto enter section, we'll see that we have those first 3 letters and that it increments every time we create a record. This uniquely identifies a record and allows us to create relationships based on a value in a field that is not entered by the user. That's very important because we don't want to orphan records. And then of course we have the foreign keys that allow us to store the primary key to keep that link between tables. Then we decide that we need to have our window sizing done properly. We don't want a scroll bar up or sideways on a form view, and certainly we can have a scroll bar in list view if you want, but only vertically, not horizontally. So we made very important decisions as far as the layout size by coming over here and sizing up this area. So we had the explicit layout size set and making sure our parts were exactly the size we wanted so they'd fit on the screen that we were programming for. Then we went ahead and designed an interface for form view as well as list view, using of course the themes that come with FileMaker to make our job very easy so we won't have to be graphic designers. We also did relational design. If we go into Manage Database, we'll see what we did in here. We have all this great stuff we did here, and we use the anchor buoy system. That allows us to make it easier to work with larger systems. So it's a very important relational design technique. We also created portals. Here's one right here for our products. Of course, we had a bunch of portals over here as well. These are all filtered portals or filtered relationships. 2 different sides of the coin that kind of accomplish the same thing but are very different, and we learned about that. Then we also talked about conditional value lists. We have one right here. So you choose this and choose business, and it goes ahead and filters what you see over here in the second pop-up menu. We also did a calculated field conditional value list. It didn't use a relationship like the one down here, but allowed us to remove people from this list if they're inactive. And then we had reporting, of course. We come down here and we look at our reports. We had one on lines, and all you have to do is sort by the right field and it organizes it for you. Of course, our invoice was also a report as well. It's not showing very well because it's not sorted right now, but that was also technically a report, some type of output. And then we learned all kinds of things about scripting. I'll point out some of the highlights. We learned about parameters, we learned about variables, and we learned about set field. Those are all very important scripting techniques to know about. And then of course all the naming conventions we talked about. It's very important to be consistent and to have a name that means something, but not at the expense of making a really long name, because then it's hard to read. You want to be concise. So it's not easy to name your fields or your scripts or any else well. It takes a lot of practice, and so you have to work at it and come up with something that really, when you look at that field or that layout or that script, that it instantly means something in a quick amount of time.